Good evening, everyone who is joining us now on this live stream. My name is Kārlis. I'm head of the business incubator at University of Latvia, and today I will be moderating this discussion about smart cities and challenges that we face across Baltic countries. Starting from today, this is like the first event that we are hosting, but in future, up till the next Icebreakers Festival that will happen on the 8th of October in 2021. We will be doing these kind of events every month, so one or two, speaking and discussing topics that are important for society nowadays. And we will try to not only discuss what are the challenges, but also show some potential business opportunities. So those of you who will watch these events, maybe you can come up with some kind of new idea for startup. And today we have three speakers from all of three Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. We will discuss what are the challenges related to smart city in each of these countries. So I will welcome first of speaker from Estonia, Raivo Sell.
Good evening.
Hi, Raivo. So maybe you can tell a bit about yourself and what organization you're representing today.
Good evening from Tallinn. My name is Raivo Sell from TalTech, which is Tallinn University of Technology, and I'm working here as an autonomous vehicles research group leader and in School of Engineering, but also we have a tight collaboration with a Smart City Center of Excellence. Yeah,
okay, nice. And as a second, I will invite Lāsma from Latvia. She's also joining the stream. Hi, Lāsma.
Hi, Kārlis. Hi, Raivo.
So maybe you can also introduce yourself, what organization you are representing and what you are doing.
Yeah, of course. Hello also everyone who is watching on Facebook. My name is Lāsma Ivaska and I represent an organization called VEFRESH. And we are an innovation district, an innovation movement to create a place in Riga in VEF district that could help companies test their smart city innovations more easily. Because currently it's super difficult for startup students and even large corporations to get their innovations on the real streets and actually try how they work. Are they good or should they be changed? So this is what we do on a regular basis, and my role here is I'm the innovation lead and project manager, so I help all companies that are in need of these type of services, and we also help with innovation facilitation here in VEF district.
Okay, nice. And as a third one from Lithuania, I will invite Juste. Yeah, hi Juste. Can you hear us? Just a second, check the microphone. Am I the only one which is not hearing?
No, I also don't hear Juste.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sorry about that. Hi, so I'm Juste from Lithuania, Trafi. So who hadn't heard about Trafi, we are working with cities. So we started in Vilnius, Lithuanian capital, and now we expanded quite globally. So what we try to do, we help cities to build mobility as a service networks and structures. So we provide the whole technology for that, going vertical, starting with backend and finishing with front end. And what is mobility as a service is kind of a concept where you, let's say, from a single interface, these days would be app, you could, buy your public transport ticket, check the schedule, book Uber, rent a kick scooter, and etc. So basically you have all integrated urban mobility network in one place, and hopefully one day it can, be as convenient and as efficient, and you won't need a car anymore. So we are also, aiming for the better good for the world with our solutions and collaboration with cities and mobility providers. So yeah, that's what we do.
Okay, nice. So now we know all the speakers and participants of today's discussion, but also you who are watching right now in this live stream, you can be part of this discussion, because if you will write your questions in the comment section, then we will show it on the screen and ask for our participants. And as well, we have prepared for you Slido. So if you will go to this Slido website and will use the code Smart City, you can write in your challenges that your city is facing today related to Smart City field. Also, you can write your questions there, but I would suggest that for questions we use this comment section, and then if you want to put your own challenges, then we use Slido, because afterwards we can see what kind of challenges are the most popular right now in Baltic countries. And how we will do this event, for each of the speakers, we will give 10 minutes to pitch their solutions, not solutions, but challenges that they are facing. And afterwards, we will have 10 minutes where we will all together brainstorm what could be the possible solutions. So I hope that at least we will come up with some ideas how we can solve these problems or challenges in each of the countries or for the organizations that you're representing. And we will start with Estonia, and then we will go to south. So the second one will be Latvia, and then Lithuania. So Raivo, you're the first one. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Just a second, sharing the screen. All right. So yeah, it's quite good timing at the moment, because in Estonia we have now the rather new Smart City Center of Excellence, and we just finished yesterday the selection of pilot project, which will start to solve some challenges what's defined here. But maybe a little bit to give a background how this or what are the challenges and how they group together. How we see it here is that, of course, the mobility is very important, and I think in most cases when people are talking about the smart city, they think about the mobility. So there is a new ways of mobility, micromobility, and self-driving vehicles. And that's the area that I'm also working on. But it's not only part of the smart city how we see it in the future. So it's also the built environment, how our buildings are done, and also the energy consumption, and of course the Green Deal and all the sustainable energy is really crucial for the new smart cities. And it must work all together, and it's quite often actually even the bigger problem than technology, that we can have really nice technology available, but because of the laws and different kinds of contracts and so standards, it's just not work as it should be. So this governance of all these streams is really crucial, and that goes up to the politicians. And everything is connected to the data nowadays. So urban analytics and data management, including open data and data collection, privacy, cybersecurity, and all these kind of issues are what you need to really address in every stream. As I said, we actually just finished the urban challenge mapping process, and here you can see a little bit more detail what are the real challenges, what's maybe not looking that much for the future, but what are really critical right now, and how these local government cities in Estonia have defined them. So they are divided in the same way that, for example, first two are in mobility section that, for example, urban mobility doesn't combine the full potential of different modes of transportation and including the new ways of transportation. Public transportation issues, of course, worldwide problem, and connection between the suburbs and key cities, and always problem as this suburban areas are growing really fast. It also comes to the planning, road planning and energy consumptions, energy supply systems, and also the production. And again, it's all connected to the data and public services. So if we do have the data, is it well used, and how we can really get the good services and proactive services out of this data. I will talk more detail about mobility, as this is my field, and we are starting the pilot project about that very soon. So the main challenge what we are trying now to solve is the urban mobility issues, and also data collection and data uses. And as already mentioned other speakers, that we have now the micromobility, of course, the public transport, mobility as a service, and so on. So how to get everything work together, including ticketing system, planning, and etc. So it's not only Estonian problem; it's worldwide problem, and under the heavy research in different continents as well as countries, of course. So how we see it, or how we see, or we're planning to solve, or how this mobility in the future city would look like, especially in urban areas. And it's pretty clear that there are many systems developed by private companies, developed by governments, protocols and data exchange solutions, but they don't really work together. And I think this is one of the crucial to get different IT systems, physical systems into the one data exchange platform. And that's something we're trying to design here, which we call the Mobility as a Service X-Road or XT, or Transportation Operating System. But the main idea is following Estonian X-Road concept, where we have the open protocol to exchange the transportation information. For example, if there is a public transport system which is providing their locations and so on, it can be easily connected to the other transport solutions. And our main focus, specifically in our research group, is the last mile self-driving vehicle. We have developed our own vehicle. It's doing the experiments over the 2 years already. And now getting further, we want to make our vehicle as a real on-demand basis solution. We have different pilots done in Tallinn. Right now in Greece, our vehicle is driving around 2 more weeks. But make this vehicle also as a smart data collector, because it has all the equipment in sensor side, like cameras, environment monitoring sensorics, and so on. We can get a lot of kind of good data, which can also be the basis for the new services for the private companies or other interest bodies. And of course, the main public transport is there, but to connect it with the last mile vehicles, which are acting in the city hub or suburban hubs, can make a very smooth transport system. And these hubs are, in our case, in harbor, where you can continue your trip to Helsinki, for example. Also in Ülemiste Center, where we have in Tallinn the airport, and Rail Baltic terminal will be there. So it's very, very good track to test it. And in particular, after 1.5 years, we want to start a pilot case where we implement up to the 5 self-driving vehicles in suburban area in Rae County, which is close to the Tallinn. And it's connected to the existing public transport to the Ülemiste hub. In this hub, we experiment with micromobility, the e-scooters, which also connected to the same system. And on the end, we have Tallinn Harbor, where we have one dedicated road self-driving vehicle. So basically, the full stack or full flow from your home door up to the harbor, for example, to see how it really works in the future cities. And of course, to collect the experiment data, user experience, modeling and simulation for the safety, etc. For example, this platform would be really good also for trip planner. I see already here a nice collaboration opportunities for Trafi, for example. But our idea is to offer the open source kind of data exchange platform where all different players can join easily. And I maybe leave a little bit more time for discussion. So it's a short overview about our challenges here in Estonia and also in particular mobility section where we start several projects, including this pilot project. And just as a background, I'm leaving the concept how in the future these self-driving vehicles going to be implemented, because the safety is really critical. We need to first simulate the area, then we can run on different kinds of simulations, and as an end, we'll put the vehicle on the road where there is no safety person anymore on board. It's truly self-driving without the driver. So thank you very much. I hope it gives us very brief overview about our challenges in Estonia and in particular mobility side. So I'm open for discussion and leave this slide as a background here.
Okay. Wait, we should be all together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe you have some thoughts already after what you heard from Raivo?
Yeah, I maybe can comment. I think what you're doing in Tallinn is super interesting. From my side, if we talk more about what type of solutions would be like quite small and interesting for like students or startups to kind of try and tackle first, because probably in your first business idea you're not going to develop a self-driving vehicle. But I think what Raivo mentioned about these capabilities of cities to gather and analyze data, that they are very low at the moment. I think that is a really big issue. I think this is something that most of the cities in this region, and I think even globally, are really suffering from, because we are often speaking about big data and how much data we have to analyze, but that is more about like data that is owned by private companies. Whereas the data owned by the city or public data about the way how people move, their habits, about the air quality in different parts of cities, this is data that is not available for urban planners and cities themselves. So I think if there could be some kind of initiative that would work with this and try to gather data on relevant indicators for the cities, that would be very interesting. And for example, here in VEF district in this July, we opened the first kind of machine vision system that counts cyclists. And it's not a big solution. It's quite small. It basically recognizes that that person is cycling a bike, and he adds like a +1 number to the total. But this is the first time when we can finally see how many people are using cycling infrastructure. And this is data that the city didn't have before. So I think these type of solutions are very interesting for anyone involved in this field. So I think that's a big thing.
Maybe I can comment a little bit that we want to even go a step further, and then we just conducted today the experiment about our vehicle, because we have our own self-driving vehicle, and we can do everything what we want on it, and that's a very big advantage. But as we see that if we implement, let's say, 5 self-driving vehicles in a specific area, it's like, let's say, a small community. They're driving around there without, not in the dedicated road, but on demand. So it means that they're covering pretty much this area very often. And as they have a 360-degree video stream full time, the LiDAR data, point cloud, it's extensive data. And how we see that, how it helps is that it can detect, let's say, wrong depart car. It inspects all the infrastructure. We already had the request that how the lampposts are they maybe not correctly, or we can measure the scooter speedings, so that if scooter owners or city wants to know that are these e-scooters used correctly, and different kind of things. It's a little bit scary actually already that there's like policemen going around all the time and then monitoring everything. And of course, this privacy and cybersecurity is very crucial here. But still, it will give you a lot of information, which is very expensive to collect. But if these new kind of vehicles are driving anyway around, then we can extract and use machine learning to detect, for example, this violent behavior. I can share the link later, but we just tested how it works, that we imitated the fight on the corner, and then the machine vision detected that, okay, there in the close where the bus is passing the place, there is some fight going on, that can basically report it to the police or whoever necessary. So that's quite interesting what's possible to do already.
Yeah, and I may add here a little bit, and Lāsma touched a very interesting point about data and accessibility, right? To add to her point, yes, there are challenges to get data from cities because they hold on it, of course. But there's another challenge that, you know, each private provider for mobility, let's say, since we are talking about this now, usually, you know, everyone creates their system, how they collect the data, what kind of data they collect, and there's no standard there. Everyone, most likely, hopefully they're doing, you know, in GTFS format or something, but sometimes it's hard to, even if you have access, you know, it's hard to use that data because you need to spend hours and hours actually reforming it for it to work with your systems. And that usually stops a lot of startups from scaling because they need to invest a lot of work into labor just to fix the data rather than grab it and use it. So this is one big issue I think that needs to be addressed. Another one in regards with data is that cities do have data and they try to work and collect it. The issue is, you know, they don't have like a toolkit that can combine all the data and make out of it something useful, because they have, let's say, 25 sources. And as well, they are having issues that that data comes in different formats. Some come even in Excel, something comes in PDF, something comes, and they cannot read it and match it, you know, and that's how that, until it gets processed, it becomes old. So they are looking into solutions or someone who could provide them something that they could process this data faster. And I think the third very interesting point is that it's also about data, but it's more about, you know, city or and private entity communication, right? So yes, we have a lot of, you know, micromobility companies and data they collect and etc. But the issue is this exchange between cities and private providers almost not happening, right? So yes, cities would benefit from this data, and even if if city could directly talk to those providers via APIs and send to them, like, I don't know, you cannot park here, or today there's a march, so all the scooters needs to be taken away. Now this happens via email, they get not read, fines happen, etc. So if there would be a solution, who would connect these two parts, who actually want to communicate and want to make more livable and better cities. So that's the idea of to a challenge to solve, how to make these two parties who are a little bit on different steps, right? Having in mind startups who are very agile and very tech driven, and cities who are, trying to catch up, but they still need an extra hand there, how to make their communication happen and make it efficient. So
that's something we're
yeah.
trying to actually offer now, starting from January, and then I think university and then our Smart City Center of Excellence is kind of good body to help the private companies, bigger and smaller, and governments to come together and try to define this kind of data exchange standard. And of course, we don't know whether it's successful or not, but if we follow, and I'm really big believer of the open source software, and then if this protocol exchange transport layer is open source, then it's I think big potential to become as a middleware for exchanging this information. So.
Yeah, I also saw these initiatives about common clouds for EU and etc. And I think that's amazing. The only challenge here, or what I would anticipate, what needs a closer eye on is, right, even if you have open, there should be a standard. Somebody cannot just upload something there and hope that it will be good. You have to have a standard and someone taking care of making sure the data is up to date, how often it's updated, what format it's uploaded, how accurate it is. If I upload data which is not accurate, it's as we like to say, what comes in, that comes out. So if you have poor quality information at the beginning, you will have the same outcome. So the ideas and work, it's there's a movement. It's very, very important what's happening there, and I believe that open source is the way to go, because data should, especially public data, it shouldn't be held in captivity and not shared. And I think if everyone's goal is to make the place where we live better, it should be open for everyone. That's for sure. Just we need to make sure that its quality is at best.
Yeah, and I also have read our national statistics that have included information about the whole EU, and what they estimate is that only 1% of the whole open data in European Union is machine readable and real time, which is kind of the data that has the biggest business potential, right? And if it's only 1%, then wow, we have so much that's in hold for us.
It's big data.
There's so many startups can be created to solve this issue, right?
Yeah.
Lāsma and Raivo, we will have to kind of stop with discussing the first topic. But Raivo, if somebody after this presentation sees some kind of potential to help you to come up with new solutions, they can connect with you on LinkedIn, or they should search for someone else from your organization?
Yeah, the LinkedIn is very, very good connection, because I have also uploaded our recent updates usually over there. For example, right now we are running a cybersecurity winter school, which is trying to hack our vehicle, and also smart city connection like teleoperation and things. So if you connect over there with me, definitely I try to answer, and I think it's the best way.
Okay. Lāsma, now will be your turn to pitch and give a brief about the challenge that we are facing here in Riga.
Yes, I will just share my screen now. Okay, I hope you can see anything. If if not, then please yell. The thing I want to talk to you about today is something that I think all the Baltic countries and the capital cities share, and these are these districts that you can see in the pictures, these Soviet type of built districts that are very dense. I think in Latvia, the statistics are that 75% of the whole housing that is in Latvia has been built in the Soviet times. And I think it's not all of those houses look like this, but this is the standard. And I think Vilnius recently got quite a lot of popularity for their Soviet type of district housing because of the Chernobyl movie where it was shot. So I think it's quite an interesting thing, but this is not the district that we all have in mind when we speak about smart cities and smart city problems. But at the same time, quite a lot of people live in these districts, and it is a normal and a big part of our cities. And that's why I wanted to ask today, as a background question, what does smart city mean for these Soviet built districts? Because yes, this is not the image when you talk about IoT, about artificial intelligence. You normally see something completely different than this picture I have here. And I wanted to talk about 3 problems that I think are relevant for these districts, but maybe also apply to a broader city perspective. So it's waste, it's the idea of 15-minute city, and it's mobility. And I wanted to start with mobility. And the challenge I see is that it's unclear how can we do climate-friendly mobility, climate-friendly mobility in multi-story housing options. Because if you're a private car owner, and you have a private house, and it's pretty easy to charge your car. But for example, in Riga, if you are an apartment owner and you live in an apartment, there are approximately 15 places where you can go and charge your electric car. And the question I have is, what can we do with these districts to make them also available for climate-friendly solutions in terms of electric mobility? There are, of course, known solutions, like, for example, building charging stations, which is quite an expensive solution. But I wanted to ask those people that are interested in mobility and that are watching this, whether they can come up with a new type of solution. I was in my mind thinking about something like Bolt or Taxify for electric cars, where they, instead of bringing food, bring electricity to your car, which is in this district. So this is my first challenge I wanted to present. Second is related to the idea of 15-minute city. And this is a concept that has taken, I think, Europe by storm over the past 5 years. And it's the idea that if you live in a city, all your main needs should be satisfied within a 15-minute walking or cycling distance. This includes kindergartens, health institutions, schools, workplaces, shopping, etc. And what I think we all know, that these Soviet type of districts are not really ready for a 15-minute city, even if they have schools and kindergartens, because this is something that was planned when they were built. The 2 things I think they lack the most are workplaces as well as culture and entertainment, because these residential districts were built for one purpose rather than for mixed use. So I was thinking whether we could make not companies move to these districts, but create, like I was thinking yesterday, non-hipster co-working stations. Maybe those are libraries, maybe something else, but a solution that could allow people to work here in the district that they live in. And the second thing is culture and entertainment. because this is also something, at least in Riga, that is not readily available in these districts. People go to city center, to cinemas, to theaters, etc. And I think if we could discover ways with technology or without how to bring culture and entertainment in these districts, it would also help them to become more ready for the 15-minute city. And the last challenge I wanted to present is related to waste. And I think this applies not only to Soviet type of districts, but I think for a whole country in general. But it is, how can we make recycling more user friendly? Because, for example, I am quite keen recycler. I have been doing this for several years, and I try to do my best to do this correctly. But it's still very difficult, and I'm still not sure whether I'm doing it correctly. And there are so many instructions in regarding to which item is recyclable, which plastic material, but they are really very confusing. And for me, I don't even understand anymore what is environmentally friendly packaging, because often the things that are that have design compostable or biodegradable on them are not really that way. So I would say we would get, our cities would be smarter if there would be a solution that would easily allow us to understand what to do with the packaging and our waste, whether it's by scanning the barcodes or any other solutions. I think this is something that we would all benefit from. I would definitely buy a solution for this with either my tax money as a citizen, or secondly, as a private consumer. So yes, so this is the summary. I think horrible recycling user experience. I think the second challenge, that these cities are not ready for a 15-minute city concept. And third, climate-friendly mobility in these multi-story housing units is something that should be solved. And I wanted to present these solutions, not something too large, because I think small ideas could go a big way with solving these issues. So yes, I think that's it from my side. I would be happy to hear what kind of solutions you already know of within this field, and what kind of suggestions you have.
Oh, if I may, I just had like a good internal laugh. We share the similar culture and history, right? And I think a lot of that comes from our background. And when you talk about recycling and say how to force people to do that better, like, or incentivize them or encourage them. And yes, it's very confusing, I know. My friends live in Switzerland. It's just so expensive not to recycle that you just do it, you know. So basically, I think it's quite brilliant at the same time, because you just buy a bag, you pay for, you don't buy your plastic bags in a supermarket, you buy plastic bags or whatever bags they are for different usage, for paper, for you know, general trash and etc. And then you put everything in, and then they pick it up. The special cars, I don't know, like in Lithuania, there was, you know, a paper collecting car, which comes on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. You run out with all your paper. So it's similar there now. They come, you give all the trash with a special bag, and then they do the rest, right? So I think they understood that it's easier to do the rest, just make at least the first step correctly from the citizens, and they will finish up. But yeah, but the initial thought was just so expensive not to do it correctly that you just do it correctly. And actually, same in Austria. I mean, even if you travel for skiing or etc., right? They already show you there's 5 bins with, you know, just a sticker what goes in there, like bottles, cans, and etc. And I think this visual helps a lot to cycle and put items in. But also, I think, you know, it would be very easy, when I think from top of my head, if we would plan our kitchens where we usually have a trash place, right, in a correct way, that it would have enough space to sort the trash, that, you know, the companies who build your furniture, the trash bins, if they would be sold in a huge, like not a bucket, but maybe a square divided in 4 parts, you will be already incentivized to put it, because you will have the mean. You wouldn't need to create how to do it at home.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I know I used to have a roommate who was from Japan, and she said that the houses often come with these 7 different places for bins, because every day of the week there is different day for different material kind of throwing out. And basically what happens is that if you throw something that does not fit within that bin's kind of allowed items, then the garbage trucks do not even take them. They have to inspect it, and only then they can put it in the truck. So it's you have to be very, very careful, and it's not that you put this in this one bin and nobody knows who owns which trash. So I think it's a good point about the design of our apartments and of our kitchens that should also be improved.
Maybe just some comments also that in our university, the new system was implemented, I think, less than months ago, where we have also seen everywhere now the small different trash cans in the corridor. But I'm totally agree that it's going, the idea is good and everything, but the implementation is really complicated. And I was standing there, I think 5 minutes reading all this manual to understand where I should put my coffee cup, which is it's not the paper, so not the clean, then it's not mixed trash also, and it's not really falling anything, any bin, and it's getting more and more complicated. And I'm pretty sure that many people just give up and throw everything wherever places. So it's really kind of complicated problem to solve it wisely. So the idea is good, but usually it may produce even more kind of non-environmental impact if even the idea was very good in the beginning.
Yeah, and my question then to you both is regarding my first challenge in regards to electric mobility and multi-story housing. What do you think of the idea of having like a Volt courier for your electricity that just instead of your food brings electricity to your car? Do you think this would work?
Yeah, that definitely might be a solution for these kind of areas, and if there is a need for this kind of service, and the sharing, also the like cars charging their power banks, and then vice versa. For example, to get the cheaper energy, it's already implemented in some places, but more or less experimentally, not in the wider area. So how to build up this infrastructure and also the management of this kind of systems probably a challenge. Technically, it's not that complicated, and it might be as I see this mobility in the future, that very likely the people don't own the car anymore. We don't know how far this future is, but they don't own it, and if the self-driving cars are coming, so then you have your basic like subscription, like you have the mobile phone right now. Different packages, and it's the mobility package. And if you pay more, then you get the faster and more personalized mobility. If you pay less, then there is maybe you have to share the self-driving vehicles with others. But then you don't have this kind of issues anymore, like where to park a car, and so probably the cars will be kicked out from those cities. I won't say pretty soon, but concerning time scale, I think we will see it. so
yeah, hopefully sooner than later.
Kind of problems anymore.
We are working a lot, right, to create this great network of mobility in order to not need cars anymore in cities, at least, right? Cars should become how it was actually introduced, car was introduced in 50s, 60s as a symbol of freedom, that you can go with your pickup to middle of US mountains. And that's what should car be for, right? To just go once a month for a trip or so, and you should manage all within your 15-minute walkable cities. I love that idea, by the way. Yeah, and the top of my head of those districts, and I think the main idea here, I will probably touch more of entertainment part. Here is looking in Lithuanian's background, and when we talk with people, and when you always say, "Oh, I would like to have this something, a coffee place, a bakery, nearby," because otherwise you have to go either to shopping mall, either to the city center, and you don't want to always leave your district. So I think usually the fear stops people. They're like, "Oh, who will come here, or who will do that, or etc." So the trend I see is that when we build new districts now in Lithuania and Vilnius, they already have their little community created. They already have a maybe tiny cinema or a tiny bakery or some. It's already getting there. Usually it's bigger chains, which is sad for me personally, because I would like to see, a local hood baker who's making my croissants in the morning. But I think the great example would be Berlin, to look at it, right? Especially eastern part, because what they have everything. They have different districts like these hoods, and one is more like, and you choose where to live depending on your preference. If I like to go more to clubs, then you choose district because it has more clubs. If I like to night and dine, I use this district, and etc. But basically, in 20-30 minutes walking area, they have everything. They have a gym, they have a bar. Doesn't matter if it's fancy or not, but they do have it, and you have an option to go. And everything is kind of stored in the first floor apartments. And they have a bicycle repair shop, and they have everything. So they managed to build that kind of small cities within city, and which is nice. And of course, if you want to go somewhere else, you take that trip, you plan, you want to go because it's exciting to leave your hood. But definitely there is a feeling that sometimes people say, "Oh, I haven't left my hood for a year now," because you choose where to live, where it's nice for you. So I think for us, we need courage to move that direction. And I think the younger generations will have that. I mean, I still remember how the grannies were putting water on us when we were sitting by the window, and being too loud. So I think this is changing now, and we have opportunities to create actually that.
Okay, we are actually out of the time to discuss Lāsma, your challenges. Yeah, maybe just to add about what you said about these non-hipster co-working space in these districts. Then when this pandemic started, in one podcast, I heard that good solution, well, they said that would be a good solution to make co-working space in these in the first floors of the houses. So if there is like a multi-flat house, then in the first floors there would be co-working. So the people who would come to work there would be from the same house. They actually suggested that maybe the whole company could move to the same house and live there, and then they could work there. But yeah, we'll see, because I think this pandemic and working from home probably will leave some changes forever, and maybe we will not need to go from our houses to city center every day. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the last country, Juste. Are you ready to present your challenges from Lithuania?
Yes, I think I will be quick because my challenges were kind of covered in some way or another. So I'll share my screen. I tried to adjust my presentation a little bit as we go. So I hope you see my presentation now. So basically, I think in both the two first presentations, my challenges were also covered, so we'll try to keep it brief. But basically, right, the difference is that we feel that our cities are too cramped, right? Like how we have in the first presentation talking about this more efficient, ecological, sustainable mobility, talking about more sustainable cities and living way. And when, usually people forget what sustainability means. Sustainability doesn't mean that it biodegrades or it's eco-friendly. Sustainability means from the root of the word that I can use and reuse that item, that it lasts for long. And what happens now in today's world, right, that we have 4 TVs, we change every year. We have we lease the car, so we change the car every 2 or 4 years. It's not built for that short of the time, right? The car works perfectly fine for 20, 30 years and even longer if you look in Eastern European roads. So right, so that's the idea, that you keep on reusing and fixing and etc. So and I think current situation, pandemic, as horrible as it is, it showed us a nice things as well. It showed us that we can find a lot of items around us in 15 minutes, or we can order something and create less traffic, or we just can walk, we can slow down our pace and actually start enjoying life. However, we still live like this, right? Everything is car based. I mean, even with Uber and car sharing, right? It People thought it will be cool, and this is how I don't use my car and etc. But in New York, they had so many issues with circling empty Uber cars that they had extra traffic jam issues and environmental issues, right? And as we see, the whole world, or at least Europe for sure, is moving to more this environmentally friendly, sustainable life, and cities and governments, they want to reduce the pollution, they want to increase the livelihood of cities and its citizens. So my challenges here, I'm challenging mostly the car in the cities, right? Because it creates a lot of issues. First of all, of course, it creates environmental issues, then it creates social issues. When I grew up and I was 18 years old and I just got my car, right? I didn't drove a public transport, I don't know, for many years. Like I was in a bus, I would never sit in a bus again. And that was social. That was social kind of, you have to have a car and drive. Of course, there were more issues, like you have only 2 buses in an hour, and if you missed one, you're kind of damned, right? Nevertheless, that was kind of a thing. You had to have a car. It showed that you're a part of society, And then of course there are governmental issues, and we see that it's changing, that we have European deals, to reduce CO2 emissions, to change fleets into environmentally friendly, and of course trying to create this walkable cities rather than having one center where all the city moves in the same hours and out of the same hours to create smaller districts. And that's a huge mental change for citizens, for cities, and of course it's infrastructural change. And we already touched this idea of mobility as a service, right? We already use mobility as a service, and all cities are actually built around it, so it's public transport. So basically, if you look, especially those who have trams or railway transport, the cities grew around them because that was the lifeblood of cities. Everyone could sit into it, reach the destination, and etc. Then car came, pushed everything out, reshaped the cities, right? If you look at how the cities are shaped, it's basically you have 8 lanes for cars and 50 centimeter walking sideway. I may be exaggerated here, of course, but like the ratio, what is given for cars and pedestrians and bicycles and etc. is unproportionally majorly. So the idea is to actually reshape how we see the traveling, the commuting, the motility in cities, right? And you don't need to own car for every day, because there is a public transport, there is a bike, there is scooter, there is whatever you can choose to move. But the idea is, and here I'm touching again at data exchange, right, that everything works in silos. And if you want to create an efficient journey, you fall back to the car, because you know that it will be there, you will sit in it, and you will drive there, right? You don't know if the bus will be late, or there will be a kick scooter if you need it, and etc. And that's what we are trying at Trafi to change, and in cities, right, to kind of create a solution that would guarantee you that you will have your transport mean when you need it, and an affordable price. So the idea is, right, that we take the city infrastructure, the public transport, the last mile, and etc. You connect it into one. You make a bundle of that, and you give a digital access to it, because that hopefully almost everyone is using digital tools. However, there are some challenges, of course, and how we can create these 15 minutes sustainable moving cities, right? So one of the challenges are how to make the integrations easier. So we kind of touch upon this, right? That the data is in silos, is very unreadable, different, and etc. In order to make this happen, to make it a connected network, mobility network, we need, to connect the information flow. So that's a huge challenge, how to make it easier. Having standardization, having a cloud, having open source, all of those options are possible. However, we need to do it quickly, right? We need to make the shift and use this opportunity now to move forward. So that's one of my challenges. Second, my challenge is what I would like to raise, how we can make this, mental behavior switch for people, how to increase the importance and usage of shared mass mobility. By mass mobility, I have in mind public transit, shared bikes, and etc. What is used in masses, because especially in Lithuania, you have a very, very bad taste for that one, and only poor people or some or whatever kids and grannies are using public transport. So I think that's a huge challenge, how to switch a mindset of the user. And the fourth challenge is how to make it more inclusive, right? So basically we are saying, oh, but there are scooters for last miles, there are autonomous vehicles, there whichever. However, if you're not tech savvy, if you're not advanced, probably you cannot use it. And not all grandparents or even parents have smartphones, So you have to think how to make all this technology accessible, understandable, and inclusive for all generations, not only for, 35-year-old white male who has all the iPhones attributes in his pockets. It has to serve all society. And sometimes I think we forget that. So that would be my challenges. So I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see also you. So they were more mobility based, but be my guest.
I think there is a quite big challenges. You mentioned that we as a society are not ready, at least not all of us, because some of us still think that, as you mentioned, to use public transport, it's you lower your status in society if you're not using a car. Or, for example, recently, probably Lāsma also saw that when we this reconstruction on Chaka Street, and they made lanes for bicycle, and people started to argued that that will make more traffic jams on the street because there will be only one lane for cars. So it's quite big challenge for us as a people to understand that actually we could use less cars daily. And
yeah, I totally agree that it's a big mental hurdle that we have for people to switch to other modes of transportation. I was already speaking about this 15-minute city, and Juste, you also mentioned it. For one of our podcasts previously, we were talking with this professor who came up with this idea and who is working on its implementation in Paris. And what they have announced just, I think, in the beginning of this year is that by 2024, so in 3 years, they will remove 70% of public parking spaces in Paris. And I was asking him, like, how did the people react? Didn't they start like mass protests, and didn't they burn like everything? And he said, no, like people were supporting it. They were happy. And only 30% of Paris people living in Paris are car owners. So for a majority, it actually doesn't matter whether there are car parking spaces or aren't. But as Carlos mentioned, we have recently had a very big argument here in Riga about public transportation versus cyclists versus cars. But I think one of the potential ways how to deal with this is to make public transportation routes and more regular, because I think the problem with the transportation system, at least in Riga, I believe it could be similar in Vilnius and Tallinn, is that it has very wide coverage of the city. You can go to anywhere where you want, but most of the public transportation routes go only once an hour. So it's very inconvenient for you to use it unless you use like those 4 or 5, which are actually regular. So I think for to getting more people interested in using public transportation, regularity is one of the things that we should try and go for.
Yeah, I agree. Regularity and assurance that it will come, right? That you know that it will be there or won't be late or too early. So that's very important. And as well, I think, I think I lost my thoughts while listening.
Maybe a comment from what we can think that in US the public transport has even much lower popularity, and we should be happy here in Europe that we are much better.
That's
situation.
true.
But the problems are same in the US and even bigger. And how to make the public transport popular over there? It's I was living last half a year in South States, and we were dealing with the same issues there, and it's much bigger problem, I'd say. But the concern about this tech or also the acceptability of this new technology is definitely important, and specifically, for example, the self-driving vehicles, that you need to educate people, or you just can't put them on the streets and hope everything works. So therefore it's very important, those kind of pilots, that you introduce the technology. There is a person inside the vehicle who is basically acting as a guide, explaining how it works. It's not scary or anything. And that's, I think, important, and what's now already has been, but many cities probably starting to demonstrate this technology, because you can't just replace it, even if it's maybe safe, which is not. So that's important. But once those older people accept it, they are actually very happy, because they also don't understand many other technologies, but once they accept it, they are good users. So I think there is no problem with this, and they maybe even like it more if it's convenient for them. So it's important. And but what's also the issue is, maybe many people don't know, is that they also now have the problem that if there is no driver in the vehicle, how it reacts with the pedestrians, for example, because if you cross the road, you want to be sure that the car don't hit you, and how you do it, you just look inside the vehicle and basically driver's eyes and say, okay, recognized you and he's ready to give the way to you. But if there is no driver, it's really problematic, and that's something which is also investigated right now. It's called language of driving. So how really we signal to the pedestrian that yes, it's fine, I have seen you, it's safe to cross the road. And then there is other case that if these self-driving vehicles are very polite, let's say, then people cross everywhere the road and they don't care because they know that they never hit you. And then the transportation is also blocked basically because people don't care. And it's very different in different cultures. Try to drive in, I don't know, in Thai or India with a self-driving car, which is polite and follows all the traffic rules. So it comes actually many kind of problems and issues which is not yet there, but we have to deal with these kind of things in the near future. So that's really interesting, and how really to implement this kind of language of driving, and it really works.
Oh yeah, I think that's hopefully we can just change quickly to more sustainable and mass and shared transport, so we can have healthier cities and streets and healthier lifestyle as well, right? Look at Amsterdam, they're so happy. Like they're just cycling everywhere. It's like, it's amazing. I'm always surprised when I go there. It's like, wow.
You also mentioned in statistics that a lot of cars are actually standing, that we don't use them. This year I'm paying more attention to, at the end of the year, I will try to calculate actually how much I spend on my car and how much kilometers I have drove through the year. But for example, if I need to visit parents or other relatives which are living outside Riga, I'm not sure that at the moment these shared, for example, if I want to use CityBee or CarGuru or whatever, then I'm not sure it's that not cheap, but forgot the name. The price at the end would be that good if I'm taking it for a day or 2 days, and then maybe you don't want to quit to be a car owner.
I mean, the idea is like, this is looking hopefully not that far away in the future, right? But there should be infrastructure built for you to go into suburban areas and cities and etc. Idea is to reduce the car usage, right? You still can have a car and go for it for longer trips if you need, and it's better than it's an electrical car. But idea is that start at least fixing the city area, that you don't need to drive in it, right? And there are a lot of ways how they're doing. One, as you mentioned, in Paris they're taking 70% of parking lots. That's is brutal thing to do, but this is the way to go, and people will adjust to it. They will be angry for a few months, and they will adjust to it. Their habits will change after a month or two, and that's it. And the same is happening in Lithuania. It's very interesting to see how different generations see the same challenge. So in the city center, they made the parking extremely expensive. It's like €5 per minute or something. It's like ridiculous. And then most of the people's understanding was that, government just needs money. They're collecting more now, and not thinking about, no, they're trying to force you out or force your car out of the city, right? So I think we will see a lot of interesting actions. And by the way, I would recommend to read for you. There are several articles, definitely, about the hidden cost of the car ownership. And then you can actually see that car costs way much more than renting a car for a month, a day for a month, every month. It's still cheaper. We just don't see those costs. So it's we don't feel that we spend it, but when you think that your car stands and you need to change battery and you need to change oil and you need to fuel it all the time and wash it, and I don't know, there was a scratch, you have to cover the stains. When I read those articles and made calculations, I was shocked. I'm like,
I'm pretty sure actually in the long run, it's going to be the same as 100 years ago, when there were horses and cars were coming. So also there was fight against car owners and so on. But in the end, where we are right now is that you can keep the horse also if you want, but it's your hobby. The same going to be with a private car, very likely that if you want, you have special places. You can have it at your country home and to drive in closed areas, drifting or whatever you like. But for the daily use, you don't want to use a private car, very likely. The question is when we reach this, but we will go anywhere in that direction, and that's going to be happen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Carlos, once you do your calculations at the end of the year, please share with the public so that we know how much kilometers we should drive a month or a year. When should we switch from private ownership to shared? But the thing that I'm actually really waiting for in the Baltics is like an Airbnb for your private car, so that you would be able to rent out your car to other people, because I think that would also, the same as Airbnb did for hotels, then the car B&B could do for the cost of renting
the good news is that it's already there and I have used it. So if you look for auto levy, then it's much cheaper than city view. So you can get very good car for 20 euro per day. So if you search for auto levy, then you will find it. I don't know if it's actually in Latvia or Lithuania, but I believe it might be. So I can share the. I wanted to put my car over there, but someone bought it first, and I was able to do it. But it's much cheaper, Latvia, and you get good cars and very wide selection.
Yeah, not that many people know, but auto levy is already in Latvia for a couple of years. Wow. At least they were in Latvia. I don't know if they still are here in Latvia, but they were. And about this renting your car while you are not using, there is one futuristic concept created that if you would own autonomous car, that while you would be in work, you could rent out your car and it would serve as a delivery car.
That's a concept.
And when the car knows that your work shift is ending, then it comes back to your workplace, picks you up, and you go home. And of course, while you are going home, if you are alone, then your car is offered as a taxi for other people who are driving the same road. So that would be something cool if somebody can create something like that. Okay, we are actually past the time that we planned for this discussion, but at least for me, it was interesting to listen to all the challenges and possible solutions. I hope it was the same for all of you. And I hope that maybe that inspired for new ideas, or at least you will discuss, maybe even between all of you which were participating in discussion later on, how you could cooperate and maybe create solutions together. Yeah, and I guess that's it for tonight. I hope we will stay in touch. And those of you who watched the live stream, maybe you come up with some ideas, then feel free to, I don't know, write to us, me or Lāsma here in Latvia, or if you're from Lithuania or Estonia, then you can reach out to Juste and Raivo, and let's create better cities, more environmentally friendly and more friendly for people who live there.
Thank you very much.
So thank you all for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.